Hello everyone. So this is a very quick video on physical versus chemical changes. Okay, and this falls in the section of chemical equations. But before we talk about balancing chemical equations and what that means, let's first look at physical versus chemical. So a physical change is going to be a change in the state, form, or properties of a substance, but there will be no change in its chemical composition. So examples of this, one of the most important are going to be any type of phase changes. So if we go from a gas to a liquid, or from a liquid to a solid, or vice versa if we go from solid to liquid or liquid to gas, or we'll see eventually you can go between a gas and a solid. Any of those phase changes will be included. So examples could be ice melting, which is going to be from a solid to a liquid, water evaporating, which is from a liquid to a gas. We can also cut things or grind things, and that's not going to change the chemical composition. So if we cut a piece of paper, it's still paper, and if we grind a solid into a powder, it's still the same solid, just in a different form. So chemical changes are going to be changes that do produce a different type of matter. So those are going to change the chemical composition. And examples of that could be the formation of rust, all forms of combustion. So anytime you burn something, that's going to be an example of a chemical change. And then we can have cooking, digesting, or rotting foods. And many biological processes like photosynthesis are all going to be examples of a chemical change. So again, you'll just see some examples here in the pictures. Wax that's being melted from a solid to a liquid, or steam that condenses on your cooking pots. Those are going to be physical. Some chemical changes, of course, thinking of a reaction that's happening in a flask in a chemistry lab, like copper and nitric acid. Those are examples of chemical changes, as well as your combustion and your cooking or rotting food. Okay, so let's look at some exercises where we need to decide whether it's a physical or a chemical change. The first one is a condensation of steam. So again, we are taking steam, which is a gas, and condensing it into a liquid. So that is a physical change. All right, burning of gasoline. So the key word, one thing when you're looking at the examples here, is to look at the verb each time and focus on that. Okay, so burning of gasoline, we said that burning is going to be chemical. Any explosion or combustion is going to be an example of a chemical change. Souring of milk, so that's an example of rotting food. That's going to be chemical. And dissolving of sugar in water. So we didn't talk about this one necessarily under the physical changes, but when you dissolve sugar in water, you get sugar water, which means that the sugar is still sugar and water is still water. You haven't changed anything necessarily. So if you have a beaker and let's say we've got some sugar, which represent the little dots, and then we have our water. Well, if we dump that into the water and dissolve it, all it's going to do is disperse it through the water itself. So there's no real chemical change going on there, and that would be physical. All right, and then the last one, melting. So melting is going from a solid to a liquid, and therefore that's going to be physical as well. All right, so that is the end of this short video.